COVID-19 pandemic has positive and negative impacts on different aspects of lifestyle behaviors. Negative lifestyle behaviors are associated with an increased risk of adverse outcomes from COVID-19. While dealing with COVID, we overlook the fact that people's lifestyles were severely disrupted. Many people have become physically inactive and developed irregular eating patterns, which leads to unhealthier lifestyles and aggravation of lifestyle-related diseases. COVID-19 pandemic has also caused significant changes to homes, working life and stress. A multi-sectoral approach promoting healthier diets and increasing physical activity can help in slowing down the diabetic epidemic and heart diseases. Beat Diabetes Myths and Facts will impact and help a large number of people to prevent or control metabolic disorders. Today, we have with us experts to share with you advice on leading a healthy life. Let me introduce the guest to you. We have Dr. Sisir Kumar Mahapatra, MD Medicine Consultant Physician, Bhubaneswar, Dr. Rajiv Gupta, MD Medicine Consultant Physician, Surya Hospital, Delhi, former President, East Delhi Physician Association and Delhi Diabetic Forum, and Dr. Nagraj Kumar, MD, DM Cardiology, Interventional Cardiologist, Sankalpa Super Speciality Hospital, Tirupati. Thank you so much, doctors, for joining us today. Dr. Sisir, I would like to start with you. It is now well known that people with diabetes are more at risk of adverse outcomes due to COVID-19. Should they be still worried of complications of the COVID-19 infection even after being fully vaccinated?
See, diabetes is a major comorbidity in COVID-19. Now, those who have taken 2 doses of vaccine cannot provide 100% protection. It doesn't mean that vaccines are not effective, or it doesn't mean there is anything wrong with the vaccine. But people, those who have taken vaccines, they must also abide by the COVID appropriate guidelines, that they have to use their mask, avoid crowd, and live in a ventilated room. And at the same time, they must ensure, either through a telephonic consultation or through a telemedicine, that their blood sugar levels are within a normal limit, that is below the diabetic diagnostic level.
Okay.
So that they will not be worried for any future infection or after they have taken 2 doses of vaccines.
Absolutely. I think that's very important what you said, that it's important while one is vaccinated, we do need to maintain the COVID protocols, and keeping the sugar level is very important. Dr. Gupta, the outbreak of COVID-19 has posed several new challenges in diabetes care. What is the best way forward for post-COVID-19 diabetes care?
You see, post-COVID-19, the care starts from the time you are discharged from the hospital or when the cessation of therapy for COVID-19 is done. After that, what is more important is to maintain a very good glycemic control. And the first step to do is check your blood sugar, check your HbA1c, and the doctor should also find out what other comorbid conditions that patient has got. If he has got hypertension, if he has got heart disease, if he has got kidney disease, the management will differ. Another important aspect is the status of diabetes prior to the COVID-19 therapy. Whether there was a pre-existing diabetes which was not under control, whether it was first time detected during COVID-19, or third, if it was a pre-diabetic patient who got converted into a diabetic during COVID-19, and finally, whether it is a new onset diabetes. Then the question of treatment also, it's the severity of COVID-19 also matters. If the person has been on steroids and he has been in intensive care unit for his COVID treatment, then probably he will require more intensive control and more severe management of his diabetes status. So according to his general condition, his clinical condition, the past history, we have to counsel the patient, and we have to ensure that a proper discharge treatment is given to him. Okay. Because some patients are on multiple doses of insulin, while some other on single injection of insulin. Sure. So depending on what treatment he is being discharged on and what was his pre-COVID status, the physician will have to decide his further course of action. Yeah. So people who are on oral drugs, they can be well controlled on oral drugs again when they go home. But people who are on insulin or who are on steroids, probably they will need insulin therapy for at least 1 to 3 months post-COVID time.
Okay.
So all patients must be taught self-monitoring of glucose and also self-injection technique. This is a very important thing that each patient should know, that how to check his blood sugar at home.
Dr. Kumar, there are increasing instances of people having encountered fatal heart attacks post-COVID-19. Is it a side effect of COVID-19 or is it just a myth that COVID-19 causes a heart attack?
As far as the COVID-19 and heart are concerned, there are various aspects to it. See, one is if a person is already having a heart problem, we know that if a person having a heart problem is affected by COVID-19, he doesn't do well. The chances are there's almost more than 10% mortality, and the seriousness, that is one. The other is the COVID-19 itself affecting the heart in a person who earlier did not have a heart problem. So COVID-19 also causes heart attack. It also causes myocarditis, heart failure, and rhythm disturbance and other things. And it has been shown that COVID-19 also increases the incidence of heart attacks to some extent. And many times the patients with COVID-19 and heart attack doesn't do very well, but there are various reasons to it, including, of course, probably the increased thrombogenicity of the disease and all. But even more other important things is the delay in coming to the hospital, the delay in the treatments, and then these people many times are not getting the emergency angioplasties. These are some of the reasons why the results are not very good.
Yeah, so timely intervention as well as prevention is key here. Dr. Mohapatra, the prevalence of diabetes is increasing due to multiple reasons. Can the 90-90-90 program, can this be the solution to this problem? Will it help to reduce the prevalence of diabetes in India?
See, India is a very vast country. And the people with diabetes are in quite a large number. And the prevalence is also largest. So we have to get a awareness program the public by adopting this 90-90-90 program. Now first 90 stands for public awareness and detection. Once we detect the patients who are diabetic, then we can start a medication with a lifestyle. Second 90 program would be manage diabetes with lifestyle medications, give them medicines, so that we can able to manage 90% of patients suffering from diabetes. The third 90 will be, with the treatment, we will have a 90% control, so that the burden of diabetes today on our country, that our country is being set, it is the diabetes capital next to China in the world. By adopting this 90-90 program, India can be able to diabetes care capital of the world.
Sure. So 90-90-90, which is awareness, of course, managing diabetes well and treatment. That's really well explained. Dr. Gupta, is there a need for people with diabetes to look at a revision of doses as they are working from home? And also they tend to put on more weight due to less exercise.
Well, ideally speaking, we will not recommend that they should revise their doses on their own. It's more important that they ensure lifestyle modification. For example, they can do some regular exercise, even if a brief walk of 15 minutes 3 to 4 times a day will also help, or 2 sessions of aerobic exercise in the morning and evening will also help in this. And then the next thing is diet control. What we saw in this epidemic was that people were making lots of new foods, and they were trying out new recipes at home, and all those things, they caused more increase in the calories. And it was those increased calories along with no physical exercise that caused the increase in weight. So more important is that you take care of your calories, reduce your calories, increase your physical exercise, and check your doctor with your blood sugar status. If you are still not able to control your blood sugars, then consult your doctor before changing or increasing your medication. Do not self-medicate, because most of these medicines are long-acting medicines, and they may cause hypoglycemia late in the night or early in the morning. So I would not recommend that people should revise their medicines themselves.
So I think that's a very important takeaway point, that we should not, self-medicate. Dr. Kumar, many scientific studies have shown a close relationship between cardiovascular disease and cholesterol levels. Should one focus on lowering dietary cholesterol or saturated fat?
Yeah. Initially, of course, after the Second World War, we know that there has been a lot of studies, and then the cholesterol has been shown to be like an enemy. But ever since 2013 and since a decade, we know that cholesterol, we were probably overreacted. And see, according to current evidence, if we see, there is no, like, we know that the blood levels of cholesterol, if they are more, that causes the problem. And if we can decrease the blood levels in the cholesterol by medication called statin, it is protecting the heart, either primary prevention or secondary prevention. But what we don't know for sure is, if we decrease the cholesterol intake in the diet, is it going to translate into the benefit? That is something not very clear. So that is why in the recent guidelines, there is no dietary cholesterol intake cutoff like that. Earlier we had a dietary intake cholesterol cutoff of not more than 300 milligrams per day and all. Now that is removed. So now if we look at it, it's like taking a wholesome approach. Like if you take, whether it's a Mediterranean diet or DASH diet, more of a plant-based diet, maybe like a low-fat dairy products and all, lean protein, so that overall saturated fats and cholesterol, they generally go together. Okay. And so the focus now is on cutting down the refined carbohydrates, cutting down the trans fats, and cutting down the saturated fats. And cholesterol per se, we are not looking at the amount of cholesterol intake per day, but once we have adopted a wholesome dietary plan, it usually tends to have a lower cholesterol, though we don't have a target on that. See, like, for example, earlier probably we used to strictly say no cholesterol, no egg yellows. Now probably one whole egg per day is really fine for most of the people.
Sure.
And like, even then there are some specific caveats. If a person is really having very high cholesterol, still maybe they can still avoid the high cholesterol diets like the red meat or the egg yellow. And maybe a person with normal cholesterol values and the need of like maybe more like elderly person and all, maybe they can still take even 2 eggs rather than 1. That we have to probably tailor to the person's needs. But the focus now is on cutting down on the refined carbohydrates, trans fats, and on the saturated fats. And we should see, anyway, we have to get 30% of the calories through oils or fats, whatever we may call. And these saturated fats have to be replaced by the unsaturated fats, but not with the carbohydrates. That is again something to be kept in mind.
Sure, I think there's some important points which we must keep in mind. On that note, we're going to be taking a short break. We'll be back very soon. Welcome back. Dr. Mahapatra, I would like to start with you. Self-monitoring of blood glucose is essential for people with diabetes to maintain tight control over their sugar levels. Their use, importance and frequency are different in type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Can you please explain the differences between the monitoring requirements in both types of diabetes?
This is a very good approach for anybody suffering from diabetes to check his blood sugar regularly. The most important use and approach of having a self-monitoring blood glucose, that is through a glucometer, is to understand whether the patient is developing hypoglycemia or not. Now that happens particularly in a patient who is newly diagnosed type 2 diabetes and having high blood sugar. We have to know with the giving medications whether he is developing hypoglycemia or not. So with having a glucometer, he can check himself and know whether there is hypoglycemia or not, and accordingly he had to adjust his diet, his exercise, his physical activity, and as well as medication. Now this is very important for people with the type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes. Now individuals with type 1 diabetes, they only live on insulin. Therefore, it is highly essential to know their level of blood sugar, whether they are developing hypoglycemia or not. And then they have to also check, those who are taking insulin, they have to check before snacks, before meals, minimum 4 times a day, and once before bedtime as well.
Sure.
And there are some guidelines also, they can check up to 4 to 10 times. Similarly, in a patient of type 2 diabetes, suppose his blood sugar level is controlled, he can check once a day or even 4 times to 10 times. He can check his blood sugar before all the snacks, before all the meals and before bedtime. But as an experienced senior physician, I also advise my patients, if possible, check up his blood sugar through a glucometer around 3 am to 4 am
Okay.
in order to assess whether there is a rebound phenomenon in the early morning. If I can explain that to the public, they will also understand.
Sure.
Around 4 am early morning, there is hypoglycemia because the counter effect of the body by secreting many hormones. Morning there is hyperglycemia. So that gives a ambiguity for the physician to know whether he had really hyperglycemia or early morning he has a hypoglycemia. This is known as Somagi effect.
Okay, so that gives a
So
more accurate. It's more
that will be
accurate,
more
right?
accurate. So this way, people with the type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes should have this. They must be taught also how to check their self-monitor blood go through a glucometer, how many times is used. Very important is during hypoglycemia.
Yeah,
And particularly in this pandemic, you see, there is nobody to check, nobody to go to
Yes,
the lab
yes.
to do his blood sugar level. So that at home he can measure his blood sugar, make a telephonic call with some physician, and
Sure.
control his diet, medication, exercise, and activity, so that he will have a tight blood glucose control in order to avoid further complications
Yeah.
due to this pandemic.
So
Thank you.
self-monitor so that you can really take care and manage diabetes well. Dr. Gupta, is only blood sugar control sufficient for the effective management of diabetes? If not, what other factors should be controlled?
You see, diabetes is a very complex disease having multifactorial factors which cause the risk for diabetes. And diabetes is the major cause of death. 70% of the people of diabetes, they die of cardiovascular diseases. So obviously only sugar is not at all important. It's blood pressure control, the cholesterol control, and physical exercise. All these matter as far as management of diabetes is concerned. So it is not just glucocentric approach for type diabetes. It is more important that we control the blood pressure as well as we control our lipid levels. In fact, it is classically called the ABC of diabetes. A stands for HbA1c, B stands for blood pressure, and C stands for cholesterol.
Okay.
So all the three are equally important, and all the three are responsible for the mortality and morbidity in diabetes.
I think you've really explained that really well, the ABC. So, Dr. Kumar, does hypertension increase the risk of heart disease or heart attack in individuals? What can be done to manage hypertension, thereby reducing the risk of a heart attack?
Yeah, we know that hypertension affects the heart.
Yeah.
So as you said, both heart disease and heart attack. So heart attack is definitely, we know that hypertension is one of the traditional risk factors for causing a heart attack. There is no doubt about that. In fact, it has been well established in many studies, including the Interheart study. It also is an important factor for heart failure by increasing the muscle thickness and all. So hypertension causes both heart attack as well as heart failure. And to decrease it, of course, lifestyle changes are very important. To like salt restriction, regular physical activity, keeping the weight under check, avoiding smoking and moderating the alcohol intake and decreasing the stress and all these things. And then some patients, especially younger patients, very high BP patients and all, we have to rule out a secondary hypertension, that is BP caused by other problems like the endocrine or the kidney related issues. But in 95% of patients, we need to do lifestyle changes and then the medication, of course, and keep the BP under a very good control.
Okay.
Especially if they're having additional risk factors like diabetes and others, we have the BP control should be very, very good.
Thank you so much, doctors, for joining us today and helping us understand diabetes well. I think we've really understood we need to take care, it's lifestyle management. You've really explained all these points really well. Thank you so much for joining us.